All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here live for another market open. It's been a very fun 24 hours. It's been a very fun 24 hours, especially if you are in the Palantir community. We're going to have Keith Fitz-Gerald on today. This is a big day for us. The reason why this is so important is because Keith is someone who is more in the mainstream media when it comes to covering stocks, financials, and Palantir. He has been one of the only people since the stock was $8, $9 speaking about the company publicly. Again, there's just not a handful of analysts that speak publicly. Keith has had 40 years of private market equity research, so he definitely has, I would say, really nice credentials in terms of the financial markets, and he chose to put a little bit of his reputation behind Palantir, and it's not been too bad so far. I've got my friend with me, Mr. Berg. What's up, man? The one thing, Adam, can you turn the AC off in the back?
You still hear a background?
Yeah, we still hear the background.
What about right now?
Still hear it.
All right, let me sign back on.
I'll remove you for like a couple minutes. Try to if you can't, I'll remove you for a couple minutes. If you can't figure it out, that's okay. If not, then you can go on. Okay, so we're gonna have Keith on in about 20 minutes. Now, Palantir stock has hit $16 in the pre-markets. We're at $15.97 right now. We hit 16 very briefly. And the reason we hit 16 is because we have another new deal. I'll make a video on it later because we don't have all the time in the world to discuss it. But Palantir is now partnered with Panasonic Energy of North America to build smart factories for their larger battery manufacturing plants in Nevada. This is another big deal. This comes 2 days after we got $463 million from the military. And we to implement AIs and LLMs, or AI infrastructure and LLMs. And this comes after a new partnership with AWS and Amazon. So this is 3 days in a row that Palantir has decided to show up with some new news. I'm just going to show it very briefly here, and then we'll go from there. Palantir and Panasonic have announced a multi-year partnership to deliver operations of a smart factory for Panasonic North America in Nevada. The company has selected Palantir's Foundry to help integrate edge sensors across factory lines, introduce automated efficiencies, and enable operational users on factory floors to leverage connected operations. The agreement expands Palantir's signature platform, including AIP, artificial intelligence, edge capabilities in the manufacturing space. Obviously, this is all fake because we know that Palantir is an imposter. So who caught the debate last night? Who got to see a little bit of the debate? Look, I'm going to make a video about recapping the debate. I will say this. Could I have not cut him off a little bit more? Yes. But the way a debate works is you also have to move on to the next point. And when he starts rambling, it's just like there's no value coming from it. So when I asked the question and he didn't know the response, you have to do a follow-up to that. You can't just let him say something that doesn't have a response. But I agree, probably should have cut him off a little bit less. In terms of emotional, people like Amit got emotional. It's not emotional. I wasn't there. This is fun for me. This is a game. For those that don't know, I was one of the 7th best debaters in the United States of America. This to me is fun. This is exciting. Like, I love this shit. We had 850 people there. I wanted to put on a show. I mean, to me, this is exciting. And those emotions are characterized not by, oh my God, he's talking bad about my stock. Because frankly, I don't care about that. The emotions come from, you made a report on Palantir about saying they're AI fake and you don't know what the word ontology means. That's a big deal. That's like me writing a bear report on Tesla and not knowing what FSD means. I mean, it's not to pick on ontology. It's that's just a fundamental word that helps you understand AIP. If you don't know that word, you don't understand AIP. And so, that's kind of why people may have thought it was emotional, but quite frankly, it's not emotional. I don't hate the guy or anything. He doesn't hate me. It was respectful. We talked afterwards and it was totally fine. But I wasn't going to sit there and have some boring ass conversation about so let's talk about the SPACs and then let him ramble on for 2 hours about something that was a year's worth of old. So it was fun. No, he didn't come from by my request. He actually didn't come from my request. You're saying he came on by my request, and you made him look like a so 2 things on your comment, George. You were a bit rough. I could agree with that, but that's the point of interviewing someone who literally said the company is remember, he said the company is a fraud. He said they're misleading investors. They're lying. That's what imposter means. And he admitted that. He was your guest and came on by your request. He actually requested to be on the show. You made him look like a fool. I mean, that to me is actually a good thing to do. I mean, if someone says your company is fake and you have a lot of money in it, you should probably make them justify it, which if they can, then great, you invested in a fake company. If they're not, they should look like a fucking idiot. But That's neither here nor there. Some people are gonna like it, some people are not, but that's what we had. All right, let's keep going from here. So it is 9:25 a.m. We have 5 minutes till market open. You did say confront, so at least that wasn't clickbait. Yeah, it wasn't, hey, we're gonna have a little fun interview. It's like, no, this is like, we're about to have a conversation about the fact that you called them a fake company. And if you didn't mean to say imposter, well, you shouldn't have used that word. The reason you use that word is because it implies something that is a more negative stereotype for you to get clicks or get views or whatever. So if you're going to do that, you have to be accountable to that. Like, I think we have to be accountable to these types of things. And if we're not accountable to that, then what are we doing? But it was fun. It was fun. I think, for the occasional comment was here or there, like, oh, it was too emotional, a little bit too rough. The vast majority of comments and messages I'm getting were like, the guy didn't know what he was talking about. And that was the goal of this confrontation, to showcase that he didn't know what he was talking about. The debate only matters if you can win that the other guy on the side doesn't know what he's saying about AIP again, if he was just a casual bear, this is fine. But if you take it to a level where you say they're misleading investors, and he literally said that word for word in the interview, you have a whole different deal. You can say Palantir is a sucky consulting company. That's fine. When you say Palantir is fake, that's when I'm like, all right, you're taking it to a new level. So let's have that debate. Palantir's at $16 pre-market, up 3.62%. So we have officially touched $16, 3.62%. This is why I said I was not going to sell. The reason I said I was not going to sell was because I wanted to enjoy this ride, and this ride has been very fun. This ride has been very, very, very fun. Made him look like a fool. That's because his guest is a fool. He was out of his league. Yeah, and look, again, there's nothing personal I have against this guy at all, which is why I never ad hom attacked him at all. And if you go through the entire interview, there was never like, you are just an absolute idiot. It was, hey, Edwin, this makes you seem like you didn't do any research when you don't know what meta constellation. He's like, oh, how are they targeting Ukraine? I'm like, well, they're using meta constellation. He's like, what's that? I'm like, what? How can you say you don't know what they're doing in Ukraine? It's a black box. And then I'm telling you exactly the software they're using in Ukraine, but you don't even know what the software is. Like, just going on their website, it's like on the front page, you scroll down a little bit, meta constellation, boom. Now you know, oh, geospatial intelligence tracking, etc. He's like, it's a black box. I'm like, bro, it's on the website. So that was kind of the point there. Adam, hello.
Hey, is it better now?
It is way better. It is awesome.
Thank God.
How do you feel? 16 pre-market.
Yeah, I feel really, really good. It was nice to get this, contract right now from Panasonic. It's interesting. The first thing that Panasonic says is, we're using Palantir for AI and machine learning. Like,
That's
every
fake.
single
No,
contract.
It's all fake, right? It's all fake.
I don't think, the debate was really good yesterday. I don't think people understand how debates work and arguments work. You try to disprove somebody's argument using logic. This is akin to what Ben Shapiro does. Very, very good. I don't know. For anybody that says that... Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Ben Shapiro stops his opponents sometimes from talking when he has to address them on some fundamental claims. Like, if you're going to argue gender and you're going to say a certain word, Ben's going to be like, what does that word mean, before you can move forward, right? So for me, when he said imposter, you're stopping him. I'm like, well, you have to define imposter, because if you define imposter, then we have a better discussion, right?
100%.
Yeah, this is exciting. Okay, so the Panasonic deal comes a couple of days after, obviously, the AWS partnership. Quick thoughts, Adam. We got like 30 seconds till pre-market. What was your thoughts on AWS and that new partnership?
I think it's really cool. I know you mentioned it before about the diversification between commercial and military, that we're getting like two different partnerships, two different type of businesses. I think it's really, really good. And on my YouTube channel, I actually made a really good analogy. ChatGPT took it. They took the entire article and broke it down like we're 5 years old. And they're like, imagine you have a Lego toy set, and blocks just keep unbelievably dropping, and you need to organize them some way and figure out how to do something with them and fix problems when something doesn't work. They're like, and you're using this supercomputer in the cloud that doesn't exist, which is AWS. They're like, right. Well, imagine you're doing that with your actual warehouse, with your actual manufacturing, and that's what this is.
That's a great analogy. That's a phenomenal analogy. Yeah, and again, it shows the diversity and depth of what they're doing, and now we got the Panasonic deal. All right, we got 5 seconds till market opens. Going to be very interesting. We'll have Keith Fitz-Gerald on in about 10 minutes. 9:30 a.m., June 7, 2023. The stock market is now open. The cowbell is better than coffee. We've got Palantir at 1590. It was at 16 pre-market. So let's see if we can touch 16 again and see where the price action goes as Palantir opens. We've got Bitcoin at 26,000, Zoom at $69, QQQ 355, Coinbase 53. This is recovering a little bit from its decline. I think it's it's not fully recovered, but it's getting back up there. It was at like 46 at the low, so people have definitely bought the dip on Coinbase, which I think might end up being an opportunity in the long term if the SEC doesn't literally ban the company, but bans certain coins off the exchange. Fubo at $1.09, Tattooed Chef 58 cents, DraftKings 26 cents, Nvidia holding very strong at 390. The massive decline has not happened on Nvidia. It's gone from 418 to 390, but it's not declined to the point where the premium it got from, I think, 320 to 390 on the day of earnings has simply not gone away. TFC, $33. Enovix at $13.93. We've got SoFi that was also hot in the pre-market at $7.78. I think it was hitting $7.80 or $7.89 in the pre-market, so inching towards $8 on SoFi. SLG, this is a REIT that pays you 15% a month on average on dividends, $25.65. This was $21 just a week ago. Snowflake at 181, Microsoft 332, Target 131, still not recovering from the political backlash. NASDAQ hitting new 2023 highs, 13,321, just 3,000 points off from 16,000 on the highs on NASDAQ. And let's go to the S&P. The S&P is 428. I don't know if we hit 428 yesterday. I think we hit 427 on the max. So this should also be 2023 highs. Adam, what are your thoughts on the market continuing the momentum, and why is this market staying in the green?
I could only, well, not one thing. There's a bunch of things. So there's so much pent-up demand, so much money on the sidelines that people thought the market was going to crash. And I really do believe, whether it's a bubble, how long it's going to last, everyone is getting behind this artificial intelligence push. There was a lot of money on the sidelines. People wanted to invest. And that's why a certain amount of companies are actually doing so good, while the rest of the companies outside of those artificial intelligence plays or tech plays are not doing so good. And they absolutely got hammered for the last 2 years. So people are like, well, I'm looking where to put my money into. So the market ran right now. I don't know where to put my money in. I have money on the sidelines as well because I've been buying on the dip. And it's kind of the same situation, but at a larger magnitude. Also, the Federal Reserve with the pivot, it keeps going back and back. It looks like they're not going to be raising the federal funds rate, and it's going to be a cool-off. So who knows what exactly is going to happen. But, and people don't understand why artificial intelligence is pushing the market. So the belief is this: artificial intelligence is a huge deflationary measure. Artificial intelligence is a huge profit maker. Through artificial intelligence, you can become a lot leaner as a company. You don't need as many employees, and you could do a lot more with less, which means you spend less money, your profit margins go up, and you make more revenue to the bottom line. That's where it's going. It's not just some imaginary bubble of, I'm not saying it is going to work or not going to work, but that's the thesis, that artificial intelligence is going to revamp everything. Just like the Industrial Revolution revamped the entire America, this is what's happening now, or the thesis thoughts of. So it's very interesting to see what's going to happen.
Palantir now going beyond $16. We are testing. We just hit 1607. Now we're teetering at $16. Let me ask you this question, Adam. I guess, I guess the market is giving it a premium for a reason. Do you think, and I think I was reading this in an article this morning, that the AI pecan led any investors to feel that the premium deserves to be justified, and they're not going to, because they think the revenue is going to essentially grow? Is that why markets are giving them a very nice valuation right now?
Look, I think let's not kid ourselves. Some of that is coming from pure hype because it's an AI play. And other people that are actually doing research are coming out and they're like, oh, maybe there is actually something behind Palantir. And again, I'm going to say this. Most people still don't know what Palantir is. They were literally covering Palantir on Yahoo Finance, and the woman's like, I guess this was always here, we just didn't know about it. I have a video of it. That's not my words. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what she said. She's like, oh, wow, we always had this, but we never knew about it, like ChatGPT for business and large language models. Listen, Palantir really showed what they could do above and beyond, ChatGPT, and it's really cool. Now, in order to do AIP, you need Palantir Foundry. And if Palantir Foundry, U.S. commercial is growing, so much, this is going to be increasing our revenues, obviously. Now, we're not going to actually see the effects of AIP until the next 1 or 2 quarters, probably 2, 3, 4 quarters from now, when people are going to come out and be like, I'm saving a lot of money, right? Because it's a brand new product. When that happens and people are going to see that Palantir actually is saving them money, and it's huge heavy hitters that are saying this, then I believe that there's going to be more money that's coming into Palantir and the revenues are going to go up. They might smash earnings, 1622. You
Adam,
don't know
you
how
see
much
that?
this runs.
Oh my goodness, what is going on?
Can we give a shout out
Whoa.
to one community member? He's a channel member for me and you. I'm like becoming a fanboy actually. Jesse from Twitter. Bro, this
Shout
guy
out to
bought
Jesse.
in 1 month, he bought Palantir. He shows his plays. He made almost $250,000 on calls in 1 month of Palantir. Called this whole thing, still sold his calls, still has 150,000 in shares, like 10,000 shares. So he's like, yo, I'm a shareholder. I believe in the company. I sold my calls because there's more downside than upside. At the same time, he did a play on SoFi that I missed by 30 minutes. I'm up 20% on my SoFi. He's up like 200%, and I missed it by 30 minutes. So shout out to Jesse. $250,000, 1 month, Palantir play, timed it beautifully. So shout out to him.
Shout out to him. Yeah, this is pretty wild. The market is continuing to get a premium on Palantir. Palantir now at $16.13. You know, now if it falls to 15, people are going to be like, oh, it's a red day. It's like, bro, this was 7. We were struggling to get past 12 just a couple of weeks ago. I mean, literally, it was a couple of weeks ago. We were on this live stream, you and me together, watching the price go to $11, $12, laughing like hyenas because we were so happy. And now we're in the $16 range.
Me and Amit were like, by the way, please, can you guys take a moment to retweet this? We need as many people as possible. Keith is going to come on the show. I'm already reaching out to other people that are TV personalities, trying to get open the door to them by saying, hey, Keith was so nice to gracious, and we just need to get more presence. The more people that come on the show, it's not just good for Amit, it's good for the community. I get nothing out of this. I'm literally pushing to push the Palantir community. I'm not getting $1 from this. I don't get clout from this. I am pushing because it's good for Palantir. So please, guys, let's just shout this out on Twitter. Let's try to get 1,000 people for Keith, and this way I can use this to get other people. More people is good. Bro,
yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say we were excited, and me and Amma were like, "Yo, I hope $10 holds. I hope $10 holds."
I was like, Adam, I don't know if we're holding $10, bro. All right, here we go. Speaking of Keith, we have someone we're about to bring on stage. This is a very, very big moment for us. Thank you, 800 people, for being here live. I think that's a record for the live streams. I don't think we've hit 800 before. We've got a special guest who has been on mainstream media talking about Palantir. Me and Adam are not cool enough yet to get on mainstream media, so it means a lot that he is with us. Mr. Keith Fitz-Gerald. How are you, buddy?
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me. I wouldn't have missed this for the world. You're very kind.
Thank you so much for coming here, man. This guy is awesome. First thing he says is, Adam, I put on my shoes like any other man every single day. Like, bro, that's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things about this business, right, guys, is that, it doesn't matter whether you're the big guns, the little guns, just starting out, finishing late. It doesn't matter where you come in this business. Money doesn't care. And so, yeah, I do put my shoes on just like everybody else. And that's the cool part about this business. I believe, and I'm living proof, anybody can make it big in the stock markets with the right education, the right tools, and the right perspective.
All right, so Keith, thank you for being on. Can you give the audience a little bit of a preview? I know a lot of them know who you are, but who are you? How long have you been in the stock market, and kind of why are you a media personality for stocks?
Oh, well, let's tackle the last one first. I have no idea why I'm a media personality. I didn't start out with that in the mind. I began trading at 15 using money I'd saved up from cutting lawns. I was a hell of a lawn baron back in the day. Dinosaurs roamed the earth. Of course, you young guys, would not know anything about that. But I've been in the markets for now, I think it's, 43, 44 years. As an investor, a trader, an analyst, a consultant. It's just a marvelous place to be because no 2 days are the same. And that's what I really love about it.
Okay, awesome. Love it. So I guess let's get started on sort of the first argument here, which is Palantir. Why are you excited about Palantir, and why have you kind of been bullish? You've been speaking on Palantir when it was $8-9. We all saw you on Fox Business and CNBC, and we were so happy because, you know, me and Adam are here on YouTube talking about Palantir because we think we understand it, but no one on mainstream media is talking about it. And obviously they just have more distribution to reach those than us. So when someone like you goes on Fox Business and is like, yeah, this is like a real company, you should pay attention to it. For us, it really means a lot. So I guess we'll start there. When did Palantir get on your radar, and why have you been bullish about the company?
Well, it's been on my radar for quite some time, and here's why. You know, one of the things I've learned in the 43 some odd years I've been doing this is every investor will see a handful of companies like this in the course of their investing lifetime. And when you do, you really need to pay attention, because there's only one Apple, there's only one Microsoft, there is only one Palantir. And despite what the naysayers think, that's the truth. That's just the way the numbers bear out. There's only one Tesla. There's only, I mean, you can go down the list. There's dozens of companies with visionary leaders and the goods to back it up. So when you see that combination, you better pay attention. So I've been looking at this company for quite some time. In fact, I knew about it before it went public, before it went through its direct listing. And then I've become very, very keen enthusiast on the company because it's the real deal. So I've been looking at it $5, $6, $7, $8. Even before that, you know, I watched it all the way down, watching it all the way back up. It's a company that I think should be valued far more richly than it is, and it'll get there.
In terms of Palantir's AI moat and tech moat, there have been some people that have come out recently and said literally it is an AI imposter, meaning they are faking, going so far as saying they're misleading their investors in terms of their AI capabilities. It has surprised me. I think it surprised a lot of us in the Palantir community. What is your response to Palantir is an AI imposter and they're just a glorified consulting firm?
Well, I'm familiar with the individual that said that. Clearly a bright thinker, clearly an intelligent analyst, but I think that individual is off base, because if that individual were correct, then that would mean the Department of Defense is wrong. That would mean Gartner's wrong. That would mean half a dozen consultants are wrong. That would mean all the clients who are paying them hundreds of millions of dollars are wrong. You simply don't have that. So I think those comments, you know, I'm not a lawyer, but I think those comments are bordering on litigious territory. So I'd be very, very careful. But, you know, here's the other thing about a stock like Palantir, right? And this speaks to how Wall Street works, and it's not pretty, is whenever you get a stock that's on a big run or it's got a lot of potential, you're going to see the naysayers emerge. And in Wall Street speak, there's something called talking your book. And that's a very nasty practice where somebody goes on and poo-hoos a stock because they've already got a short position, or maybe the stock's down in the dumps. They start talking the book because they want to see a long go. It's a nasty way to play. Now, I'm not saying this individual is anywhere near that territory. What I understand is he's an analyst and apparently has no positions, but that doesn't change the fact that we live in a world today where clickbait and eyeballs count for more than investing in the stock does. I'm an investor. I'm old school. I'm going to stay with the stock. So to me, if that's wrong, that's like calling Apple chip manufacturing and valuing it like Intel. That's like saying that somebody like Microsoft isn't making the products it does. So to label it an imposter, that's a stretch in my book.
Keith, question. Do you think that Palantir is an evil company?
An evil spy company that is working in with the Illuminati to be able to conspire across the world and cause terror. As many people have called it, a black box technology that's just trying to, you know, take over the world. Do you think they're an evil company trying to harness your data? And by the way, Keith, before you answer, I do think you are a media personality, because for the first time ever, we have hit 1,000 people live on the market open.
Excellent. Well done. You guys deserve it.
It's not because of me. It's because of you. Thank you for that.
Well, I was going to say, you guys deserve this. I mean, because what you're doing is really cool, because you're engendering real conversation with real people from around the world about a stock that is going to change the planet. And you don't see that in the mainstream media, because again, you know, even the mainstream media, and I'm on it all the time, is driven by clicks and eyeballs and titles and news flow. And you guys have got something here because you're sticking to the story, you're sticking to what's important, and you're helping people sort it out in real plain English, no $5 words required. So well done, guys.
Thank you so much. It means a lot to us. So again, your thoughts on, is it an evil spy company?
No, I don't think so. I mean, here's the deal, right? You can define evil any way you want to define it. Now, some people in the tinfoil hat club would argue that that's the case. I don't think that's the case. Maybe I define the word differently. Other people would argue that a gun company is that way or a tobacco company is that way. In fact, when I was just starting out, I worked for a company called Wilshire Associates in Los Angeles, and we had to put together portfolios of sin stocks and sin-free stocks for our clients. And back in the day, it was alcohol, tobacco, firearms. These days, when it's involving big data, that decision is an awful lot tougher to make. So to me, do I look at it as evil? No, because that's the way I'm wired. I think it's doing a lot of good. It's working with the medical community. It's working with the defense community. It's working with all kinds of big data. I think it's easy to label it evil if you perhaps don't understand or can't see the optimistic side of it. It's easy to fall into the negative. But again, I think that's a product of our world today, fellas, rather than a story about the company itself.
Go ahead, Adam. Yep.
Keith, do you think that they get a bad rap because they did a DPO instead of an IPO, and that's one of the reasons why Wall Street analysts don't give it a lot of love? Like, even when you're talking about Palantir, I literally saw Palantir on a screen twice in like my life on TV. So like everyone's talking about AI, they'll say Palantir, but you'll never see a Palantir ticker symbol, and it's almost like so much hate, like blackballed on mainstream media. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't think you're far off, and here's why: is that Palantir, when it elected to go public, the CEO Askarp was really, really smart. He said, "This is about the shareholders, and it will always be about the shareholders." So he's going to go with a direct listing. Now, if you understand how IPOs work, they're usually a highly orchestrated dog and pony show where everybody makes money: the lawyers, the insiders, the founders, everything else. And when they come to the public, it's a misleading operation, because what happens is the public rushes in thinking they're going to get in on something from the beginning. But in fact, all that money that comes rushing in is the exit for everybody else. So yes, all the conversation I've gotten back channel is that Wall Street was inordinately angry that he went that way, because it meant lawyers didn't get hundreds of millions of dollars in fees. Investment bankers couldn't ply their trade. There was nobody handing out free shares to all the insiders. So to me, yes, they have every incentive to beat it up, to smack on it, step on it, stomp on it, whatever expression you want to use. But the interesting part is, if you look at all the transaction volume behind you, look at the list of institutional names that is starting to acquire shares, they were very actively poo-hooing the stock when it was down $5, $6, $7, even though they were accumulating positions. So this speaks to something I talk about all the time in the media and with our clients. You always do what Wall Street does, not what it says. Palantir is a great example.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that, Keith, because that seems to make a lot of sense to me. I'm 25. I'm a little bit younger. Adam's in his 30s, so we haven't seen as much as in the market as you have. When you say Wall Street's beating up and poo-pooing, especially through mainstream media, on stocks when they're at their lows. I mean, Palantir was down like 70, 80%. Your argument to me, as someone who's been in the markets for a while, as you consult with your clients, is, look, if a company's the real deal, Wall Street wants shares as cheap as humanly possible, and they will create a narrative in order to compile up, which we've seen with 13Gs and 13Fs. They were loading up. And when it runs up, retail is going to chase it when it's at the top, because retail doesn't have the stomach to be able to get it at the bottom. Is that kind of what you're implying has been going on with Palantir?
Bingo. And it's not just Palantir. And this is a really interesting point for any investor listening to the broadcast today to understand, is that Wall Street wants to separate you from your money. That's how they work. That's what traders do. Everybody thinks this is a nice business, but that's not the case. You're trading with Darth Vader on the other side of your trade. If they can figure out how to separate you from your money, they're going to do it. And they've spent billions of dollars learning how to push your buttons, make you emotional, make you uncertain, make you scared. So the only way to win in a situation like that is to take away all the tools that Wall Street normally has at its disposal. Don't fall prey to the hype. Don't fall prey to the headlines. Don't fall prey to all the different documents that are flying around. What you want to do is focus on a company, look at what it's really producing, and then you want to make a determination. I call it the must-haves versus the nice-to-haves. If it's a must-have company, I define that as making something we cannot live without. That's what's going to make the world go round. If it's a nice-to-have company, it's going to be something that's an elective discussion, an elective expense. So for example, you take Palantir, big data, that is not going back in the bottle. We've created 90% or more of all the data in recorded human history within the last couple of years. Palantir is making that a must-have. They're finding problems that we didn't even know we had. On the other hand, a company like Peloton is as nice to have as it gets. You don't put an iPad on a bicycle and call it a business. I don't care what anybody says. That's the difference between a must-have and a nice-have. I submit that there are 10 to 15 Palantirs out there right now. This is the one we know about.
Keith, question. So right now, Palantir's main market is the United States. I would say their second market would be the United Kingdoms. I feel that Ukraine can be as big a market, if not bigger than the UK, but not as much as the US. By the World Bank, they're estimating the reconstruction of Ukraine is going to be somewhere between $400 and $600 billion. And now Ukraine comes out, the Ministry of Technology literally comes out and says, Palantir is our partners in the reconstruction in 3 different fields, which coincide with exactly what Palantir does. One is going to be defense, which is government military. One is the reconstruction, which is going to be literally the commercial side of it. And the other one is to make us a tech hub of Europe. What are your thoughts about the possibilities of this partnership with Ukraine?
Well, I tell you what, I would respectfully, I think you're on the right track. Respectfully, I would push back a little bit and I would take it out a little bit farther, because it's not just going to be Ukraine. It's going to be all the companies that are involved in reconstructing Ukraine. So here's the thing is we can talk about Ukraine, but I think what you want to do respectfully is go a little bit bigger, because you're going to have all the big oil majors coming in. You're going to have pipeline companies. You're going to have car makers. You're going to have, so there's going to be a lot of different things that are going to come together in Ukraine. And Palantir, I expect, is going to play a significant role in that. But I would view it through a little bit bigger lens, if that makes sense.
That definitely makes sense. I'm glad that we're thinking on the same path. It's interesting when you get to speak. All right, I have a couple of friends. I'm a little older than 30. I'm 40 years old, so I'm as old as you've been doing this, almost.
You youngster, you.
Yeah. I've been in business for quite a while, for 20 years, so I have a little bit of experience. So I know I'm able to get into pre-IPOs, and I have some people that I know in the stock market that are analysts and brokers. And it's funny because they call me and they're like, hey, Adam, what do you think about Palantir? And it's so funny. I'm like, who am I? I'm somebody from YouTube. And they're like, actually somebody, right, with licenses. And they're like, hey, can you give us your opinion on this? And they always say that their colleagues don't understand Palantir. And
Bingo.
They don't.
Bingo.
Exactly. And so
Bingo.
Nice to speak to somebody who understands.
This is the heart of the issue, is that every sell-side analyst, and there's a great book by an analyst named Stephen McClellan, it's called Full of Bull, and I would encourage everybody watching this today to take it up, pick it up, read it, because you will never look at a Wall Street report the same way ever again. It talks about how that business actually works. But one of the things that the sell-side analysts do, and to your point, exactly, is they have preconceived boxes. And if a company fits these boxes, they can check it off. And they say, oh, I talked about this, I talked about that, I talked about this. Palantir doesn't fit in any one box. It fits in lots of boxes. So the analyst, rather than taking the time to really understand what the company does and what its potential is, say, it doesn't fit here. It's not a data provider. It's not a chip maker. It's not this. It's not that. Therefore, it's a bad company. Do their homework, do their job, do the thing. That's how you get to the bottom of a company like Palantir. I've taken the time to do it, and I like what I see because it's an A-plus client roster. It's businesses that are growing 24, 40, 60%, depending on what they're doing. It's a land and expand strategy. The CEO is all about the shareholders and has been from day one. So, those are things that if an analyst, respectfully, there's a lot of good analysts out there, but the bad ones don't take the time to make those connections. And I think that's a disservice to investors.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Keith Fitz-Gerald. I'm putting his website right now in the chat. We have his website. We have his Twitter in the description. I highly, highly recommend, if you care about Palantir and you are on Twitter, then you follow him on Twitter. Keith has been one of the mainstream analysts who has actually spoken about Palantir, not from an ideological perspective, but everything he has said. I mean, even the words land and expand, most of the bears don't even understand that concept. So that lets me know how much you've actually researched a little bit of the company and understand a little bit about what they're trying to do. We have 1,180 people here, the most we've ever had on the live stream. Thank you, Keith, for being here. My next question to you is around big data and AI. Can you speak? Now, you said on Fox Business, I think a couple of days ago, if you were not in big tech, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, etc., you missed the boat. And there may be still some time to get in. Valuations have gotten a little frothy, but you were claiming a couple months ago, look, Meta at 88, Google at $80. These are undervalued companies. They have big AI moats, and they're continuing to progress. Can you speak to the value of data and artificial intelligence at scale over the next 10 years, where you think that market's going. Bloomberg says the market's catering at 40 billion a year. Do you kind of agree with that? And then secondary, after you answer that, where do you see Palantir's role in that market?
Sure. Let's tackle the first one first. Kind of repetitiously redundant there. I haven't had enough coffee. Here's the thing, right? Is if you look at the data, you look at the field, you look at what's happening. If you go back through history, which rhymes, it doesn't repeat, it rhymes. We saw the invention of electricity, distributed energy with regard to combustion. We saw the invention of antibiotics. We are looking now at something that can fundamentally change the course of human history. With regard to the data, for example, 90+% of all the data we have ever had in the history of humanity has been created, and it's accelerating. We are going to we must have, to use my expression, must have the capacity to deal with all of it. Everything from your toaster to your wallet to your refrigerator is all going to talk to each other. And it's not just going to be insignificant conversations. It's going to be, hey, you need some bread, go out and get it. By the way, I know you have these allergies. Oh, we need this medical thing. It's all going to be interlinked. So AI is going to be a fundamental acquisition point for every company. There's not a CEO that I've talked to in the last several years that is not planning to integrate AI in some form or capacity with their business. Now, along with that comes data security, comes defense, comes all kinds of other issues. But the fact of the matter is, this is one of the biggest in the history of humanity. So if you're not paying attention, you're not investing in AI as a concept, as a theme, I submit, get out of the markets, go home, live on a beach somewhere, turn off the news, because you're going to get left behind.
Keith, that's a phenomenal breakdown. I love your enthusiasm. ChatGPT comes out around 6 months ago, plus or minus. All of a sudden, people now understand what exactly, and ChatGPT is just the basics of AI, right? It's the basics of an LLM. Yeah. But people can now visualize what it is. I use it on a daily basis. I think you probably use it as a daily basis. I can't imagine not. I stack it with other AIs. How big a role do you believe this ChatGPT has on AI, which helps Palantir, makes their AIP, which they always had the capabilities, and in general, this broader market renaissance that's happening right now? And as you can see, everything's green tech, if you don't mind talking about that.
No, not at all. It's interesting because one of the great challenges with AI, right, is that there's a lot of studies, there's a growing body of evidence that computers and the internet are actually dumbing us down. They're making us stupider, if that makes sense, because we're getting lazy. We're not learning to think for ourselves. We're learning to look for information using Uncle Google or Bing or whatever search engine is, now ChatGPT. And so the question is, how are we going to use this information? When people first had combustion engines, everybody thought, well, what's going to happen to the horse and buggy? Well, they're still around. They're just around differently. And so ChatGPT, Bard, any of these other engines that are out there, we're going to have to learn to use them productively. If we sit back and accept what's being thrown at us, I think we're in a world of hurt. But the best companies, the best employees, the best people are going to learn how to harness that information, because suddenly they realize they don't have to do the grunt work. They can focus on what makes them unique, what makes them really intelligent. That's where I think ChatGPT, Bard, all those things come in. Because the first thing I do, for example, when I look at it, and particularly if I'm researching something, is I look at it, then I'll verify sources, then I'll look across and I'll see what it really told me. Because if it just gave me a laundry list of crap I already knew, then you know what? I'm not gonna accept that. But if it gave me an aha moment that I can pull on and derive my own conclusion, that's where it's really valuable. That's where I think we're going to see some significant investment returns. Because if you look at Microsoft, for example, ChatGPT is probably going to put 30, 40, $50 on each share price over the next decade. That's significant.
Yeah. 100% agree. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Keith Fitz-Gerald. Keith, I want to talk a little bit valuation. The company is above a $33 billion market cap, trading above 16 times price to sales as of today. And revenue growth is maybe going to be 18%. At least that's what Alex Karp and co have explained to us in terms of their guidance. My question is, do you think they're sandbagging some of the numbers? Do you think this valuation can hold up with those numbers? How do you kind of feel about the overall valuation of the company?
Well, that's interesting because that speaks to how an individual investor approaches a specific stock, right? My take is that, having done this for a long, long time, there are two things that have changed the concept of valuation within the course of my career. And if you go out even longer time frames, it's definitely changed. Valuation is a function not just of what a company's worth, but how much money is available to chase specific stocks. And in this case, what we're seeing over the last 20 years in particular is the rise in liquidity has fueled an overall rise in the marketplace. So the rise and the rising water raises all boats is very, very true. So valuations to me are not necessarily an absolute like they are for many people. I think they're a relative barometer. If you buy off on the argument, and I do, that the markets have an upside bias over time, then what that really is saying is not that the company's rich in the rearview mirror. It's saying potentially that the company is very inexpensive based on what it's going to achieve. Obviously, there's going to be short-term bursts where prices go up and down, and you can use that to your advantage as an investor. That speaks to tactics and risk management, which is another whole topic. But longer term, the valuations don't bother me one bit because I understand history, I understand perspective, and I understand the linkage.
Me and Amit always have a back and forth, and we're very passionate about Palantir. And we say, look, you want to talk about valuation, we only know what we know now. We only see the surface. How can you value Palantir if a month ago we had no idea what AIP is, and then they come out and they do a whole presentation of literally evaluating an email, and from this email you have a million different scenarios. So on the surface, maybe somebody can make an argument Palantir is overvalued today based on what you know. However, how do you know what's coming out and literally right around the corner? So I think it very similar to what you're saying. It's absolutely moronic, and there's such an exponential growth, right? As Kathy likes to say, Wright's Law, right? There's such an exponential growth. When it hits like a hammer.
Well, and that's a very, very important point to understand, because we know what we know, but we don't know, or we're not always good at recognizing what we don't know. And again, this is the kind of company that will change the world, which is why I think so many people are struggling with it. So if you're a day trader and you're looking at very short squiggles, then you know what? Company like Palantir is ideal for you to come play in. But if you're an investor, it's even more ideal, because all of that fuel, all of that energy that the day traders are going to expend, you can learn to harness. Every time there's a pullback, you can use that to accumulate a few shares here and there. As long as you're consistent in your approach, this is the kind of stuff that as liquidity increases works in your favor. And people forget, I mean, I saw it several times. Back in when the dot-com crash happened, people forget, but Amazon lost 93% of its value market cap. I mean, think about this, guys, 93%. Jeff Bezos he had to go around to the shareholders and tell them it's going to be okay. The numbers will scale. Many of the same comments you're hearing about Palantir today, we've heard about Apple, we've heard about Microsoft, we've heard about Tesla. And if you buy off on the CEO, you buy off on the approach, you buy off on the products, I submit those are all things you can use as your advantage as an investor.
Keith, you're with us on the live stream. Adam and I have always rang the bell when we hit a new price milestone. We just fell below 17, but we did hit 17, so we got to ring the bell.
Woo-hoo!
This is,
all right,
we couldn't have asked for a better run-up for this interview. Like it's like, thank God, everything worked out perfect, right? The price is going up, everyone's excited. Keith comes on, it's so good. I'm so excited.
No, Adam, you got it wrong. The price is going up because Keith is on the show.
That's true.
The only reason.
No, what's going to happen is tomorrow it's going to go to 5 because I was on the show.
Because you're on the show.
Yeah.
Keith, this is.
But I was just saying, this raises a really important point for investors right now and traders alike. When you have a massive run up like this, right? We don't know whether that's because of a short burn. We don't know whether it's a dark pool activity. We don't know whether somebody's getting nervous. We don't know whether Kathy Wood is suddenly weighted in with a buy order. We have no idea. What we do know is that prices move quickly. So, for example, if you've got a long-term position, now's the time to think, okay, do I want to take a few profits, have a nice dinner? Can I take some money off the table? If you're going to Vegas and you're winning big, you don't let it ride. You manage your risk, and people don't think about that. So I've known lots of people who've gone broke taking losses, but I've never known anybody gone broke taking profits. There's always a way into the fight, and the last thing you want to do is let a huge gain like this get the better of you. So I think it's going to continue. This doesn't faze me in one bit, but tactically speaking, this is the kind of stuff that you want to think about. Is Wall Street getting ready to yank the rug? It's called a rug pull in tactical trading. That's what Wall Street refers to, a rug pull. They suck everybody else in on FOMO, then they have a rug pull, and they make money because they separate all the scared money from theirs. But if we know that that's coming and we know how to use that to our advantage, then I submit game on.
All right. Someone was asking for Keith's Twitter. It's in the description, but I'm putting it right now in the chat. 1,200 people here. If you are on Twitter, I highly recommend following Keith on Twitter. Keith, I want to ask you this question.
Go ahead. I was going to say I wanted to... Go ahead, Alan. You go. Go.
Okay. So last night I had a guy come on the show. Okay. I don't know if you got to catch this live stream. And he was the author of the Bear Cave Report. And he's like trying to tell me, and it was just really hard for me to wrap my head around it. So I want to pose you the question that the types of multiples that Booz Allen Hamilton, KPMG, Deloitte, and Accenture get in the public markets, which is maybe 1 or 2 times sales, is what should be applied to Palantir because they were a glorified consulting firm with a little bit of tech, but they don't really have a moat from an AI perspective. And I'm over here saying, bro, they're getting $91 million from the UK military. They're getting $400 million from the CDC, like any art, and $90 million to protect the nuclear codes from the nuclear administration. And he's like, none of that matters. They're just a consulting firm. What is your response to those that say Palantir deserves a 2-3 price to sales multiple like Booz Allen Hamilton or Accenture versus an actual tech multiple because they're just a consulting firm through their business model?
Well, I would respectfully push back and say, A, I've got a different opinion, and B, so does every single one of the customers that probably employs both of those companies. You know, I think it's tremendously, I want to be kind here because, again, I think I know who said that, an intelligent individual, but I think absolutely the wrong perspective on this business. Again, it's like saying Apple should be valued like HP or Apple should be valued like, a Dell computer just because it makes chips, or like Intel. That's just not the case. There's so much more to it than consulting. The thing about Palantir that's really unique is the same thing that makes Tesla so unique. Tesla's not just selling cars. Tesla is rewiring power distribution at every level of the chain. Palantir is doing the same thing. This land and expand strategy, they get in, they solve specific client problems. When the client figures that out, they say, oh, what else can you do for us? How can we do this? It makes the client sticky, gives retention and revenue, it enables growth. I mean, there's just so many things that are different from a traditional consulting relationship. So I would submit that comment is interesting, but I wouldn't pay it a lot of attention.
That's fair. Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, Keith, a lot of people are feeling you in the comments. They're like, if they didn't know who you are, now they know who you are, calling you a brilliant man. I know you have...
Brilliant is a big word. No, I like I said, thank you, but I put my shoes on just like everybody else does.
I know you have a newsletter. I know you're also an author. Can you tell us a little bit about your newsletter? I know a little bit about it for the audience in case somebody wants to follow you, which I'm sure you're going to get a couple.
Oh my goodness, I'd be honored. Thank you very much. So I write a little something called the 5 with Fitz. And it's just literally, these are notes that I've written for my own use for years. And when COVID hit, somebody said, hey, you ought to publish those. I thought, well, nobody's going to be interested in that. But 5 with Fitz is free. There's no spam. It's excuse my French, a BS-free zone. It's just literally stream of consciousness as to what I'm thinking about, where I'm seeing opportunity, how things are working. We have an irreverent take on it, but there's no $5 words. I can't think clearly if I use them, and I don't want anybody else to have to struggle with it. So 5withfitz.com, or of course on Twitter. And then if you really want to step up, we publish a monthly investment journal called 1 Bar Ahead, as in if you read it, you're going to be 1 bar ahead of everybody else.
Thank you for that.
I love it. Keith, do we have 5 more minutes with you? Is that good?
Yeah, of course. This is your morning, man.
So
Thanks
this
for
is, I
having
guess,
me.
my last question. Oh, thank you for being here. I mean, look, we have 1,200 people here, so thank you a lot. I mean, again, these people are not here because of me and Adam. They're here because
yes,
of you.
they
so
are.
We really, really appreciate that. Yeah, hopefully in the future they'll be here just because of me and Adam. I guess here's kind of my last question, summing up a lot of what's going on with Palantir. I think cautiously that the valuation might be getting a little stretched because we haven't seen the growth, right? We have to see that 30, 25% at least growth, and hopefully the increased demand from AI is what's going to get us there, as Karp has basically been saying. And I think the market doesn't think he's saying BS, which is why the market's giving us that multiple. As you've said over the past 20 minutes, AI and big data is transforming the way we understand the world. 90% of the world's data was created 1 second ago. And so you need companies to be able to analyze and get through these types of challenges. Here's my question. In your opinion, and based on all the research you've done, is Palantir one of those stocks that you plan to hold for a while? That doesn't mean take profits here and there, but is it one of those companies that you genuinely feel, you know what, I think this is a generational play. I might be wrong at 2030, but if I'm right and I sold too early, even if there's a level of regret that's going to be there because you can't go back in time and buy it when it was $7. So what are your thoughts on holding the stock long-term over the next 10 years?
Well, that's a very simple answer. I am going to hold my shares because I believe in the company. I'm planning to hold them through at least 2030. I don't care about the short-term ups and downs. But what you're really talking about is tactics, right? So for example, if you've got a hot stock like a Palantir, some days it's Apple, some days it's Tesla. Here's a thought, investing, trading is not an all or nothing decision. Many people think it is. You got to be all in or all out. That's not true. That's not how the pros do it. That's not how I do it. That's not how I advocate anybody else do it. If you learn to think like the tide, like you're a surfer, you want to look for that perfect wave so you can ride the big one. But meantime, you're going to stay out there. You're going to stay in the water. You're going to have a great day, right? So for example, if Palantir has run up and you want to take a little off the top, why not sell a few covered calls on part of your position to bank some profits, take some money off the table and get paid to do it? Then you can take that money around, turn around and either buy married puts to protect your position, or for example, you can simply set that aside and continue to dollar cost in over time, because that then takes away volatility, takes away Wall Street's advantage. You don't have to look at the headlines. You don't have to worry about squat because you know you've already bought off on the assumption that the company's going to make it. And it's a matter of how you approach it, not necessarily whether this valuations are crazy or it's going up or down or this consultant says that or the bear report's out. I mean, those things go away if you have the right tactics, the right discipline, and the right approach.
Are you seeing this price?
The price is
10. Keith, do you see the screen when we pull it up or no?
Well, let me look away from the camera here and see what it is. What do we got?
Oh, so you have, oh, I didn't notice you were on a camera.
I know
it's 17.
Yeah. And I'm like cheerleading in the background. I'm like, I know Keith is not watching this price because he's the best interviewer. It's $17.10.
Wow, cool.
What a day!
He's like, I'm waiting until 2030, so it's just part of the plan.
Well, look, guys. I mean, yeah, like I said, so I've got two targets. People ask me about price targets all the time, and it's like, okay, my price target is actually time based. I want to see where this company is in 2030. I've invested accordingly. I'm going to continue. I hope I'm smart enough to build my position all throughout that time, but I'm planning to go to at least 2030. But I'm also planning to add to the position. That's like I said, I hope I'm smart enough to do that. But I've thought for a long time this is a $50 stock. When it's going to get there, I have no idea. But there's zero doubt in my mind that it can get there. And this is exactly the replay. Every emotion in my body, every reflex I've got, I've been down this path before. I've seen it with Apple. I've seen it with Microsoft. I've seen it with Tesla. I've seen it with a dozen other players out there. People poo-hoo it because they can't believe that change is happening. When they ignore the fact that the guy is really onto something, Carp, and he's really got a product that matters. That's the part that people can't connect. So second guessing yourself as an investor is hard not to do, particularly since we live in a world where it's 24/7 headlines and sensationalism drives it. And, clickbait pops up all over the place. But learning to be successful in the markets is about being consistent, and it's about sticking to what you know. And this kind of company is clearly lined up with the right themes of our time. It's got a great CEO at the helm. There are lots of numbers that are going in the right direction. So all the naysayers, fine, they may have a point. They may even be right. But that doesn't change the fact that I'm going to continue to watch this company and continue to buy it, or at least that's the plan anyway.
On a broader thing, not just Palantir, in general, since you have 40 plus years of experience in this game, at what point are you not married to a stock? Like, how do you have an exit strategy? Like when you hit that beautiful Amazon, Tesla, you know what I mean? Like, how does that work?
That's a really interesting concept, right? And that's an interesting question because every investor is different. So there's no one size fits all. That's the beauty of it. What's terrifying is that one size doesn't fit all. So there's no, if you give somebody a hammer, suddenly everything's not a nail, right? You got to figure out how to use the dang thing. So to me, there's two things I look for. Number one, I ask myself every single day, are the reasons that I bought this company still there? If they're gone, if they change, I'm out the door like a shot. For example, I'll give you a recent one. Intel, I thought for sure that Pat Gelsinger, CEO, was going to really turn that company around. He's got a great vision, a great plan. I've met him several times. He's an interesting, clear thinker. But when they went into slash and burn mode on their dividends and all sorts of other things, and then Apple hit it struck its deal with Broadcom, that's the argument for owning Intel has changed. I was gone. I don't care win, lose, or draw. I'm out the door because the fundamental reason I bought the company no longer exists. So if Apple all of a sudden announces it's going to make swimming pools and that's where they're going to put 95% of their stuff because Tim Cook wants to retire, I'm out the door like a shot. I'm not even going to think twice. But that isn't going to happen because that's not the kind of pivot that company would make. The second thing I'm going to do, for example, is I've got to understand where a specific stock fits in the portfolio. Many people think about stocks like they're collecting cars or they're collecting houses, they're collecting cards or some other trinket that they have in the jewelry box. That's not the way to approach this. You want to find a stock that's going to be a partner, something that offers value for years and years and years to come. And as long as that remains true and you see the value, Apple's another one of these things that I hope I'm smart enough to hold this for the rest of my life and pass on the positions that I have to my children and grandchildren someday. That's the view that I have of that particular company. So it's not a matter of specific price targets. It's a matter of timing. If I have a big gain, okay, I'll take a little money off the table, but I'm not going to let go of the core position as long as the number one thing, I think, the reason I bought it is still there. It's an ebb and flow, guys. It's not an on-off switch. And I think investors make a huge mistake when they think about it that way, because then regret does come in. Then you feel like you've missed the boat. Then you get FOMO, all of which Wall Street wants. They want you unsettled. They want you emotional. They want you uncertain. And if you take all those things away, you keep your emotions out of the equation, suddenly it becomes very clear, very logical, and very calming. There's not a day that goes by that I'm worried about the markets if I'm doing my job properly.
I really enjoyed your answer. And one specific thing, I'm a father, had my second child. Thank you so much. She's my second child, 6 weeks old, and I try to make YouTube videos. Thank you. Yes. Out of nowhere, I became a father at 39. I'm like, whoo, this is different.
Awesome.
So I try to talk about other things besides for stocks. I always talk about like custodial accounts for your kids, stepped up tax basis, and how people borrow against their stock. They don't have to sell their stocks, and this is how rich people become wealthy and how wealthy people control the country, right? This is, this is what happens. So I really appreciate that you said my goal is to pass these stocks, the wealth, everything to my children. I really appreciated that specific sentence, and any father would understand what I'm saying. So shout out to you for saying that.
Well, thank you. Our boys are considerably older. One of them's 26, the other is 20 now. I can't remember when they were 6 weeks old. It passes the blink of an eye. So enjoy every moment, my friend.
Appreciate that.
It's a cool environment, though, right? This is the other thing that a lot of people talk about, and I'm living proof of this. If you believe that the sun is going to come up tomorrow, you need to live your life that way. You need to be wired that way, and you need to find a way into the fight. You need to look constantly over that horizon because, the sun's setting is not the finish of a day. It's the start of tomorrow. And I firmly believe that if you're looking for tomorrow, if you're looking for where the world is going, you're going to do one heck of a lot better in life and in the markets than you are if you're looking in the rearview mirrors all the time. So I have a very short fuse when it comes to people say, yeah, but, or this is impossible. Okay, fine. But over time, growth has never, ever stopped. Not in the history of humanity. It slowed down. Maybe it's hit a couple of speed bumps. But the right companies, the best companies, the ones that are world-class brands will always continue to power forward because they've got CEOs and shareholders who understand that vision. Politicians, bankers, the Fed, all they do is spend other people's money. So if you want to make it, you focus on the people who have a vested interest in lining up on your side of the table. That's the CEOs. That's the CEOs of the world's best companies. It's not the fly-by-night stuff. It's the big, dominant brands that are changing our world that you want to focus on right now, particularly if you're young and you're starting out, because you've got the one thing that I don't have anymore. You've got time, and you've got the ability to look at the world using tools that I could only dream of when I came into this business. I mean, we used to sit down. I had to call my broker, and then my orders round trip for 40, 50 bucks.
Someone told me you had to pay for trades. I was like, people have to pay to make a trade on Robinhood. I just have some,
it would round trip was 40 or 50 bucks a transaction. Think about that for a second. I mean, and we used to quote stocks in fractions. So you get like 33 and an eighth versus 25. The bid asks were so wide you could drive a truck through them. I mean, it was ridiculous. And now you've got decimalization and you've got highly liquid markets. And of course, with that have come a whole host of other gremlins like dark pools and order flow and payment for order flow and, all kinds of other nastiness. But the bottom line is what I would give to have a do-over and be where you guys are today, because these companies, we're going through a transitional point in human history. And yeah, you can say there's a lot of dark stuff ahead. Okay, fine. But People want the world to fail, but they want more to see the world succeed. And if you understand that, you can look for those profitable opportunities. And that's how I'm wired, because the world's bigger than your garage. Get out there, see it, explore, look at what people are doing. And all of a sudden, these investment opportunities, I mean, they just start flowing at you because you understand what's really happening.
So I wanted to add to that, but you're a very busybody. You're super active. I know you drive a motorcycle. You're a family man. I'm a little bit of a stalker, right? Can you tell us, in a good way, can you tell us how you balance the work with family, hobbies? And tell us a little bit about your hobbies. Is motorcycles your main hobbies? Like, just go out to clear your mind, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure. Not at all.
This will be the last question, then we'll let you go because we know what.
Yeah.
No, this is, like I said, this is your morning. You're very kind, and I appreciate being here tremendously. The discussion we're having with everybody. So yes, I love to wrench on classic motorcycles and cars. And the reason I do that is kind of twofold, because, when you're riding a motorcycle, it is an incredible experience that requires 100% of your brain power. And it's not for everybody, but the thing I like about it is when I go exploring, and I've had the good fortune to ride around the world, is I meet the most incredible people. We have a journey. You smell the air, you feel the temperature change. You walk in, you talk to people. When I walk into, or I drive into a village somewhere in the Swiss Alps, or I drive into a village in Oklahoma, nobody talks to me because I get out of my car. It's like, yeah, that's another guy in a car. But my wife and I pull up on one of the motorcycles, and there's like, hey, where you been? What are you seeing? Where are you going? And we've met the coolest people. And it's just really interesting because that's a part of humanity that you don't get to see otherwise. So I've enjoyed phenomenal apple pies in Oklahoma. I got invited onto a woman's porch. It was a hot day. She's like, hey, I just baked this pie. Come on in, have a conversation. Or we've discovered French fries in Idaho. Or I got to see some temples in mainland China because I was riding a motorcycle over there. When I took my helmet off, it like started a riot because here's this foreigner riding motorcycle in the middle of mainland China. I mean, it was like, whoa, how did that get here? It was like an alien that dropped in from space. So I like it because I get to do something unique. And the vintage part of it's really cool because, investing is about taking in information. It's about learning to make sense of things that otherwise don't make sense. Riding a vintage motorcycle is much the same way. You can't just turn it on and flip the switch and be gone. You got to get the choke. You got to get the timing right. You got to get the gears right. You got to, there's a lot involved in the experience. And that's the crossover to investing. So fortunately, my wife loves to ride with me. We go out, I've been known to ride 1,000 miles for a cheeseburger just because of it. And it's just, it's marvelous. But balancing it, this is the interesting part. I believe that a strong mind and a strong body makes for strong life. It makes me a better husband. It makes me a better father. It makes me a better friend. It makes me a better analyst and investor. Because if your brain is working, if you're engaged and you're leaning forward and you're thinking positively, you can look at that mountain when you drive down the road. You can park the car and you say, I'm going to climb that mountain. Why? You don't have to. You say, because I can. And then you can run up that mountain, have a great experience, look at the environment, come back down, continue your journey. That's how I like to live life. Balance is tough. I play hard. I play fast because I want to live every last fiber I can on this planet, make as many friends as possible, live the way I believe we should. So that's, to me, that's how I'm wired. Mach 5 with my hair on fire, what's left of it anyway.
I love it.
Well said.
I love it.
Well said. Bravo. Well said, man.
Thank you, Keith. I'm putting Keith's Twitter in the chat. Please make sure to follow him if you're interested on Palantir, the markets, or living life ferociously. And with
exactly.
Keith, thank you for being on. We're definitely going to have you again one time. We mean a lot. You made this live stream the biggest it's ever been, so I appreciate it a lot. Thank you for being here.
You're very kind, fellas, and to everybody watching, thanks for spending a few minutes of your time with me today. You guys
Thank you. Have a great day, sir.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, fellas.
Oh boy. How is so Adam, what's your recap on the interview, and then we'll get into the price. Go ahead.
What can I say? The guy is stupendous, right? He had a great interview. Everything lined up correctly. The price is going up. We're getting contracts. I think the guy is a fantastic talker. I think he couldn't be a better representative of Palantir for the mainstream media. And I think the guests enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It was just so nice to speak to him, man, like a regular person. And it was cool, man. What else can I say? It was amazing. What did you think?
I thought it was awesome, bro. First of all, I want to give a big shout out to you, Adam, because The reason we got Keith on the show, thank you 1,150 people for still being here. We're going to be on for another 10, 15 minutes still analyzing what's going on because this price action is insane. The only reason we got Keith was because of Adam. To be honest, if Adam asked me to reach out to Keith, I might have not even reached out because he seemed so unattainable. And, you know, I might have been like, oh, man, I don't even know if he's going to come on. But Adam didn't give a fuck. Adam said, you know what? We're going to get this guy on. And I think 2 weeks ago, he just DM'd him on Twitter. And the dude responded. And this is why, you know, as he said, sometimes you got to just take risks. And he ended up coming on the show. So Adam is the single biggest reason he came on the show. It's a big deal for the Palantir community because we have not had a Palantir mainstream person ever come on a YouTube show. They stick to Fox Business and CNBC. So it was really awesome that he was here. So Adam, I'm just putting your Twitter in the description. If you followed Keith, please make sure to follow Adam because he's the single biggest reason for why this day even happened.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm working on some other guests. I'm really hoping that this is going to open up the door for me to get some other guests. I do know a finance guy, a really, really big name from my crypto channel. He's a crypto and regular finance. Maybe we'll have him on the show, and it'll be cool to get some guests and bring in more shine to the Palantir community. I think it's very, very important. And the more people see this, the more we can grow the community. And again, that's what it's all about, growing the community. You know, I'm not getting nothing out of this. You know, mostly I'm going to get shine in his show, but that's the point. Grow the Palantir community, do selfish acts, and help each other out. So I'm really, really glad. And again, bro, the guy had 1,300 people on his show. He's growing his show. He just passed 20,000 subscribers. The kid is 25 years old, and I don't say kid as a disrespectful type of way. So shout out to Amit for growing the Palantir community. How many people are here because of Amit's show? How many people got through the hard times because of Amit's show? So yeah, shout out to every single person in the audience.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. I know we couldn't get to all the comments. Jesse, thank you for the $20 super chat. Love this guest. Keith, that's throwing out stage-like advice. Atil, thank you for joining. The channel memberships just opened that up a couple days ago, so people can join if they want to be a channel member and support the channel. I think the chat was loving Keith as well because what he was speaking about, I mean, first of all, in the first 5 minutes, he starts throwing out terms that certain Bear Report writers don't know how to talk about. And that lets you know, oh, he's not just talking about Palantir because talk about Palantir. He actually knows what the hell's going on with Palantir, right? Land and expand, all this stuff. And then he started kind of creates this philosophy that I've kind of said, which is, if you got a once-in-a-generational company, even if it is overvalued, maybe you can take some profits if that's your financial situation, but you let your winners ride. You see what happens because those that sold at 12, 13, 14, and I have nothing against those people because, I mean, yeah, like if you have to take money, you have to take money. But like sometimes you don't know where the market's going to go. And if you've done this much due diligence after 2 years thinking this could be the thing, maybe you give yourself enough respect to let it be the thing. In terms of your children's children to see if this could become the thing, right? I thought that was a great point he made as well.
And I'm just excited Palantir's price is up. Look, we don't know what's going to happen, guys. We don't know what's going to happen. You don't know, like, did you think that we're going to get this Panasonic contract? Did you think we're going to get, United States Special Operations Com, AWS? All of a sudden, Palantir for the last quarter was not shouting out contracts. They were not. It was super quiet. All of a sudden, we're like, okay, well, we're getting more information. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if they beat earnings. You don't know if they don't beat earnings. We don't know what's happening. All we know is Palantir has proprietary technology. They have platforms. They keep expanding on the platforms. They have big name contracts, and it's easier to scale down than scale up, which is what Palantir is doing right now. We don't know if they absolutely smash earnings, but if Palantir can go above 20% year-over-year growth, and then so on and so on, the price is going to keep moving accordingly. And we don't know who's signing up for them. We don't know if they're going to get another NHS contract. We don't know if they're going to get $200-300 million from the $900 million Space Force contract. We don't know if they're going to get the Titan contract that's worth $1 billion with Annual, right? So there's a lot of things that we don't, and that's just what we know about on the surface.
The S&P hasn't even happened yet. I mean, there's just so many catalysts. To your point, Adam, this week, let's just recap it for those that are here to understand. If you've missed what's happened this week, U.S. Systems Command gives them $463 million. That's on Monday. On Tuesday, AWS new partnership in the private sector for manufacturing companies. They have a bunch of case studies in the press release. Wednesday, this morning, we wake up. Panasonic, that makes batteries. I think even Tesla uses Panasonic to an extent. Is now partnering with Palantir to create a smart factory using their AIP software in conjunction with Foundry at a factory in Nevada. in order to be able to build more batteries. Like I think just the diversity of how this company is able to work into different industries and be able to get investors excited about the potential. Remember, this diversity of press releases, this was happening a year ago. They were working with Trafigura, they were working with Hertz, they were getting money from the UK Ministry of Defense. I mean, we were seeing the diversity, and all of us were like, and the stock was flat at $7-8 every time. If anything, it was down every time a new PR came out. And we were like, damn, this like nothing moves the needle. Does the market not get it? And it seems like, as Keith said, I'm happy he said that bigger players were accumulating at that time, as we can tell from 13Gs and 13Fs. And that's why it wasn't moving, because it was manipulated. And now these press releases mixed with the AI hype is giving it a little bit more of a valuation, even if it does, if it pulls back to 13. It was at 7 on May 4th. That's still an 80% gain if we pull back to 13, if we fall 40% from here, which is just insane to see what's going on right now.
So there's a comment, and that's what I wanted to bring up too, that the Nevada Panasonic plant is a proxy for Tesla. If you remember, the factory was the Tesla factory in one of the slides for Panasonic. I don't want to like make stuff up, but I remember seeing the Tesla factory on one of the slides of Panasonic. Not sure if that means that they're directly working with Tesla or as a proxy, but there is a connection there to Tesla, and I know there's links to Tesla that EtherSquares found, like some interesting links.
That's a good point. I believe they did show Tesla's Gigafactory in Nevada, and Panasonic obviously works very intimately with Tesla. Does that mean Palantir has any exposure to Tesla, or there can be a relationship? Maybe, but I guess we'll see. But the fact that Palantir is working with Panasonic, and Panasonic works with a lot of the, and look, if the EV space is growing, and this is the partnership in a nutshell. And me and Adam will probably do a video on this a little bit later. Panasonic makes batteries. More companies, more products in the world are going to need to be electric, right? They're, especially cars. Those are the biggest products. And Panasonic has a shit ton of data they need to manage to be able to optimize the factories that create the batteries, so they at least have a margin on those batteries. If Palantir is doing that for them in one factory in Nevada, Palantir is going to do that for them in Japan and South Korea and blah, 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 blah. And then you've got Tesla expanding all across the world. It's not a stretch to say that there is a very good chance that Palantir can be working even indirectly with a company like Tesla, just based on the data management when it comes to Panasonic.
We will find a way to scale down. I'm telling you guys, we will find a way to scale down to reach a lot more customers. It's not just going to be about these mega average $1 million contracts. We will be able to scale down to get a $100,000 contract, a $500,000 contract. And this is where the real growth is going to end up happening. I don't know when, I don't know how, but they will dumb down their offerings in order to offer this on a smaller scale. And this is how we're also going to maximize growth in the future. That's just my opinion.
Ty Gordon, thank you for the super chat. A while back, I said 1,000 viewers in 3 months if you stay consistent. Well, you stayed consistent and smashed 1,000 viewers this morning. Congrats. Let mainstream guests come to you forever. I appreciate that, man. It was super awesome seeing that, and seeing it come the day that Keith was on. That meant a lot. So that was super, super dope. But the genius said it's going back to 10.
Yo, I'm like going through the debate yesterday, and I was just so excited.
What were your thoughts? What were your thoughts on the debate? Let's talk about that.
I honestly thought that you did really amazing. I was not a national debate or anything like that, but I've had my fair share of debate in mock courts and things like that. And you have to establish dominance in the debate. You have to understand what the other person is saying. And then once you can understand and reinforce what the other person's statement and thesis is, you can then attack the statement and thesis and break it down. And I think a lot of people are missing that intricate detail of the debate yesterday. That's why you were so focused on establishing, hey, is this what you're trying to say? Well, let's go after what you're trying to say. Also, I've noticed not many, but there's a few literally Palantir bulls that are saying that guy's bear case scenario makes sense. It doesn't make sense. If you're a bull of Palantir and you believe in Palantir, you must believe in the thesis that Palantir is an AI play. To say somebody's argument that Palantir is an AI imposter, that does not make sense. I don't care if you buy, sell, trade. I don't give a flying fizzle what you do. But to say you're a Palantir bull and support the argument makes no sense. You cannot, by de facto, support that argument saying you're a Palantir bull. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree. I mean, let me share one tweet I did yesterday because a lot of people are like, "Why were you so focused on semantics?" Why? For those that don't know, I asked him a question. I'll do a video on this later. One of the first questions I had to the guy, and if you haven't watched it again, you should definitely watch it. Was, you say Palantir's an AI imposter, so can you please define the word ontology to me? Okay, and the guy says he's never heard of that word in his life, and so people thought this is like a personal attack that you're calling him an idiot. It was actually implicitly and intellectually making him feel like an idiot without having to say you're an idiot, even though that's how I feel. The reason for that is because that's like me having a debate with someone around Tesla, and they're like, Tesla sucks. And I'm like, all right, what's FSD? And they're like, I don't know. And it's like, it is really disrespectful to write a bear report to hundreds of thousands of people and not know the most basic term around the company. That stuff really, really matters. And so this is what I said today. It's not that complicated to me. If you say a company is an AI imposter and as a result are misleading investors, which is what he said word for word, you are making a serious claim. If you look solely at the business and not the underlying technology, which means not knowing what an ontology is, understanding how meta constellation is being used with edge AI to deliver results on the battlefield in Ukraine. By the way, he didn't know what meta constellation was. Then you don't actually understand the company. He barely knew what Gotham was. He was like, "Oh, Gotham. I think it's that government thing." It's like, all right. It's like someone saying Tesla is just barely a profitable car company in 2019 without understanding the potential of the underlying technology, FSD, and how it could help in terms of growth, competitive dynamics with EVs, pricing power, etc. All the claims about it being just a consulting business that deserves a consulting multiple. I mean, he stood up there yesterday and says Palantir should be trading at 2 times price to sales because it is a consulting business. Mainly because it is an AI imposter, meaning fake, requires you genuinely knowing if the company's AI explanation to the market is misleading. If you are right, then it's not a real tech company, but you have to do the research to be right. And so you have to have real claims that meta constellation is bullshit, incorporating ontologies is bullshit, implementing LLMs doesn't make any sense. When you don't know the basic underlying arguments about the tech, it's hard to take you seriously. The bears are right if the tech is fake, because then, yeah, it is just a fancy consulting business. The tech is what differentiates it. So the reason I spent that much time is to prove that if you don't know the tech, it's hard to treat the bear report seriously.
And I want to add something to that bear report. He posted that bear report the day of AIP Con. Whether it's a coincidence or not, doesn't matter, irrelevant. But if your whole basis on Palantir not being an actual AI play, which is what he's trying to say, I believe, that Palantir is pushing AI, but they don't really do anything in AI. I would love somebody to define what exactly an AI play is first. Then somebody, if you believe ChatGPT is an AI, right? Large language models is AI. And I believe that most people in this world believe that ChatGPT is a version of AI. This is what's making AI famous. If you believe that fundamental explanation of what AI is on its basic level, and you did not watch AIP, which specifically showcases Palantir's large language models, specifically showing their version of ChatGPT times 10. Like, I'm not even making this up. They did exactly what ChatGPT does, but on a much grander scale. And you didn't watch that. How does that make sense? The guy literally says, I did not watch AIPCon. Meanwhile, his whole basis is that Palantir doesn't actually do artificial intelligence. I don't understand what they do. Well, they did a full demo showing you exactly what they do based on a simple email, breaking down exactly what they do, and then putting it into the ontology and working out different scenarios. So they're literally showing you something that you can understand similar to ChatGPT on a different scale, but you didn't watch that. Meanwhile, you're coming on to debate that Palantir is not an AI company. Like, it's bonkers to me. Like, it's so bonkers. Forget about not knowing everything else they did, but they literally just had a whole showcase showing why they are an artificial intelligence company.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, I mean, for those that was like, he's emotional, again, I have nothing towards the guy. I don't care about the guy. It was more emotional in the heat of the moment of just like, I was dumbfounded by the fact that he didn't know these basic things. Because I'm like, you wrote the whole report and you have a 98,000 following. Like, these people pay you because you do research and you don't know what ontology. He's like, I talked to my startup friends who have AIs. I was like, what the fuck? You talked to some AI startup friends and that's how you like, that's where I get a little emotional, but it was more so in the context of just dumbfounded, not like, oh, I hate the guy. I don't have anything against him. All right, Adam, I got to get out of here. I gotta go with my mom somewhere. Thank you, Adam, for doing this. Everyone, this entire morning was possible because of Adam Bergman.
Because of your show, bro. If you didn't have the show, we couldn't do it.
You reached out to this guy. I'm putting Adam's Twitter in the chat. Please follow him if you follow Keith. Thank you to 1,200 people who are here, 1,300 at one point, 922 that are still here. Obviously, this community is very special. It's super fun. And look, maybe the price goes back down to 13. Maybe it goes back to 12. Remember, it was at 7. And Maybe it goes to 25. We have no idea what's going to happen, but the fact that it's having momentum because the market is starting to understand a little bit of what Palantir does is pretty exciting. And we'll just see where it goes from there. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate you. Thank you, everyone in the chat.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye. Lots more videos out today. Good night, everybody. See you later.